Phil, the Kansas Flamingo chef, and let me ask you a question. Do you like lamb? Man, I love it. It's one of my absolute favorites. And today, I'm going to show you how to cook some really amazing lamb shanks. So pretty much all my ingredients are laid out right here. There's not a whole lot to this dish. It's just a matter of understanding the cooking method. So I've got two nice sized lamb shanks. I actually picked these up of all places at Walmart, and I've pre-seasoned them with some salt, pepper, rosemary, and garlic, and a little olive oil. And then I've got a chopped medium onion, about 4 decent sized carrots all sliced out. I've also got a little bit of, I'm going to use not very much of this. This from Kroger. It's just a chipotle pepper salsa. You could use a tomato paste instead, but I like the zest that you get from the chipotle. Some little potatoes. We're gonna need some red wine. I've chosen a Mark West Pinot Noir. Very inexpensive wine, so it's great to cook with. I think that bottle was about $8. And then we've got some Walmart all-purpose flour. Not gonna use any herbs right now because just reset the Arrow Garden, so I don't have any fresh herbs to use. I've got some freeze-dried stuff. So this is a surprisingly easy dish to make. We're gonna need a couple of things. You're gonna need a nice size stock pan. I'm just using this pan here. A lid is going to be important here. Obviously a stovetop, and you need an oven. First thing I want to do is go ahead and set my oven to 250 and let that start warming up. I'm going to take a little bit of olive oil in a hot pan. We're going to turn that up to about medium high and put a little olive oil in the bottom. All right, let that start to warm. Go ahead and cover it so you'll get the warmth moving around a little bit. Great time to go ahead and open your bottle of wine. For those of you who don't have one of these, this thing is a fast, easy way to get a bottle open. Once your pan is hot, we're going to start. Make sure your oil's covering the base. And go ahead and put your onions and your carrots into that pan. And let them start to do their thing. A little salt, pepper, and garlic is a great idea at this point. I'm going to use this guy right here. This is just a blend from Tender seasoning. It's salt, pepper, and garlic all in one. I'll put a little of that in the bottom. I also like Greek seasoning. If you haven't heard me talk about it before, Cavender's Greek seasoning. We're going to put some Cavender's in there. We're going to let that just kind of work itself and saute a little bit. And you'll start to smell that Greek seasoning and garlic melding. At that point, I'm going to add some small potatoes. You don't need a lot. A few potatoes in there. All you're doing is letting these onions cook down a little bit, because your carrots and potatoes are actually going to cook while they're in the oven. sure you're getting that oil and garlic moved around real well. All right. To this, we're going to create a sauce. So in order for our lamb shanks to get that nice color and caramelization and everything we want on them, we're going to go ahead and lay them in here for just a moment and put the top on just long enough to let them get a little heat absorbed and some of that garlic, etc. soak in. Let those set in that pan for about 5 to 10 minutes. There's no real rush here. We want them to absorb some of that flavor and just barely get a little browning going. After your lambs had about 5 to 10 minutes to absorb some flavor and get a little browning, we're going to take them out of the pot, set them aside, and we're going to produce the sauce that it's going to cook in, and then it's all going to go in the oven.
All right, so just stir this around a little bit. And you're going to see some caramelization going on the onions, and that's a good thing. What we're going to do,
I've got some beef paste here. Now this is like better than bouillon, but you can use literally anything you prefer. If you prefer to use dry stock, that's fine. If you want to use like liquid, like beef stock, I don't recommend it, but that's fine. I'm going to use about a teaspoon of this. And the better part of a tablespoon of white flour. And then, about half a glass of wine. And mix that all together. And if it's a little lumpy, don't worry about it. We're going to fix it. Okay? Now we're going to add a little of our salsa. You don't need a whole lot of this, but I'm going to put about 3 heaping teaspoons in here. In fact, I might even go 4. Stir that in as well. We're going to add a little more red wine to kind of thin it out a little bit. You'll see that start to form a sauce. Turn your heat off on the stove. Okay? Now what we're going to do is put our lamb back in and add some water. Not a great deal, but some. And that's about just over a cup of water. I'm not going to stir that in. I'm going to let it do it on its own. It will work in there, I promise. Go ahead and put the lid on your pan and put the pan in the oven. It's going to need to be in there at 250 for about 2 hours. All right. Well, it's been an hour, and I want to take this out of the oven real quick and show you what it should look like at this point. I've also turned the heat down just about 5 minutes ago to 250, where it's going to remain for the rest of the cook. All right. And you can see the lamb shank have expanded. As that fat breaks down, they're going to start to open up a little bit, and that's exactly what you want them to do. We're going to go ahead and roll these around in this sauce and also check the doneness of the potatoes. You're going to see there's kind of, the sauce is going to start to thicken a little bit, and we want it to thicken some more. Now, you can check these for doneness by just giving them a little pull and see if that meat wants to separate. If it doesn't, they're not there. And like I said, this needs to cook for at least 2 hours. Let's go ahead and roll those over in that sauce. Take a spoon, just kind of move this around a little bit. Okay. You can also just very lightly press on one of the potatoes and see what their doneness level is as well. And they're just over half done. They're not super soft, but they're not hard anymore either. All right, we're gonna put this back in the oven for another hour. Make sure you really drench those things with that sauce, because that's where your final flavor is gonna come from. We'll see you in an hour. 2 hours. It's been almost 2 hours. Now I turned the heat up for about the last 20 to 25 minutes to 325. The only reason was trying to get that sauce to develop a little more and to thicken. But if we need to, we'll finish the sauce right here on the stove. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the whole thing out of the oven. I'm going to put the pot right here on the stove and take the lamb out, and then we'll thicken the sauce if need be. I wish you could smell this. It smells absolutely amazing. I'm going to go ahead and open that up so you can see what it looks like. Oh my goodness, look at that. That's just wow. All right, so we're going to take the lamb shanks out. And at this point, they're going to try to come apart on you. So if you cook them much longer, they are going to fall apart. Just set those to the side, and I'm going to roll them in that sauce. Now what we have here at this point is what's called a wine reduction. Okay? If you want to thicken this more, you can. You can see right now it's kind of still almost soup-like. If you want it more of a gravy consistency, especially if you're going to pour it over the top of everything and set it on a vertical stand, and we want to thicken this. So to do that, you need to make a slurry. Now all you need to do is take some flour and some warm water, mix that together, and then add it to this and stir. I'm going to show you how to do it, but I usually probably wouldn't. It's about where I want it to be. But since I'm not going to serve it over mashed potatoes or rice or anything like that, a slurry is probably a great idea. Okay, so making a slurry is pretty easy. All it is water and flour, or you can use cornstarch. I prefer flour in this case because we use flour in the dish. We're just going to mix it together, try to get the lumps out as good as much as you can. I mean, you're not ever going to get it perfect, but we don't want it all lumpy and gooey and nasty. It doesn't need to be really thick. This is a little thin, so we're going to add a little more flour. We want to get the lumps out of this before we put it into that. So, take a colander and run this through the colander into a secondary container. All right, now the secret of using a slurry so that you don't get things too thick. Turn the heat on your stove. I'm going to set it about medium. Let this start to warm up. And you're going to see it's already going to thicken a little bit since it's come out of the oven. Put your colander into your pot and pour your slurry into the colander. And then mix it right here. Then move it together. And look what we have now. It's also how you make perfect gravy. Plating this dish couldn't be much easier. So you're just going to take a lamb shank, and I like to set them so they kind of stand on their own if at all possible. Now if you've got potatoes or some rice to set this on, they'll stand up a little easier. Then just pour this goodness right down the bone and let it trickle down the sides. And that's all there is to it. I promise you, if you give this a try, you'll love it. It's absolutely fantastic. So there it is. My version of the braised lamb shank. As always, like, share, and subscribe. If you have a dish you'd like me to prepare, if you have questions, let me know. Kansas Flamingo Chef, tell your friends, and we'll see you soon.